An issue that a lot of people in Michigan are talking about, the voter rolls, and they've been talking about it for quite some time, but even more so now. Joining me is someone who I've had on the show before, Lauren Bowman, with the Public Interest Legal Foundation. So, hello, how are you doing?
Hi, thanks for having me.
I thought of you because we've talked before, but I want to show you, and you may have seen this before. I sent you the article today that has a lot of people talking in Michigan from Bridge. It's an online publication. Michigan voter rolls inflated by 500,000 people. The state of Michigan said it's not an issue. Michigan, the Republicans disagree. And this is no news to you. You've been working on this issue, right?
Right. We have been in ongoing litigation with Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson since the end of 2021, because in 2020, way before the election, we sent her the names of more than 26,000 deceased registrants on the voter roll. And after a year of her refusing to take action and do anything about it, we sued her, and we are currently before the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals trying to get that case decided to force her to follow the law and remove people who have died from the state's voter roll.
And according to this publication and other research that I've seen, Michigan's voter rolls list 8.4 million voters, nearly 500,000 more than eligible. Now, you have a lawsuit. Republican, the GOP, I believe, has a lawsuit. And Jocelyn Benson said this is not a concern. There is not fraud in Michigan, widespread fraud. She said the state plans to remove 600,000 of them by the year 2027, but Michigan remains some of the most inflated in the nation. But my question is, why? Other states are different, right? Other states are removing them.
Right, because under federal law, you are required and allowed to move someone who has died, for instance, at any time. You could do that now, right before the election. Say, grandma passes away tomorrow. You could notify the Secretary of State, and they could take action to remove her before Election Day this year. Now, Jocelyn Benson seems to have no interest in doing that. Apparently, for some reason, she wants to wait a couple election cycles to make sure the person's actually dead and they're not rising again and voting zombie voters. But she has no interest in it. She testified before Congress earlier this year about how great of a job she's doing in Michigan. And it's just laughable to see her sit there and say what a great job she's doing when all the data and everything says something different.
Yeah, and I'm reading here a spokesperson for her said that the complaints are part of an effort to sow distrust of elections. But I've talked to other people who say having this headline, just seeing this, is a concern amongst people, because the average person may not know how everything works, but just seeing this headline, which they're not denying, that sows a little bit of, I don't know if I want to say distrust, but concern though.
Right. When we filed our lawsuit, she said it was an attempt to undermine American democracy, which is obviously not the case. The point of our lawsuit is the opposite. We want people to have trust in the process. And every error on the voter rolls represents an opportunity for fraud and abuse. That's why having clean voter rolls is so important. We don't want, someone showing up to vote for someone who has passed away and casting a ballot in their name when they're not alive anymore. And, the Public Interest Legal Foundation, we have a tied elections database just to kind of combat this narrative that these errors don't matter, to show that one vote, and some of them have happened in Michigan, can change the outcome of an election, especially in local races. And, it's just kind of crazy that they say, oh, you're trying to undermine democracy by just asking for transparency and a clean election process. This is just basic stuff that Secretary of State's, it's their job to do, and she just has no interest in it in Michigan for some reason.
So is this why many people have been contacting me? And you said you have some family or distant family in Michigan. They're getting absentee ballot applications from people who haven't lived there for years, or someone messaged me and said their mother's been dead for 2 years, but they're still getting stuff from them, from the Secretary of State's office. It just seems cluttered, disorganized, not to say the least. People are just concerned because it doesn't seem like it's the organization's going on very well in Michigan.
Right. If you're getting that kind of election mail, that most likely means that person is still on the state's voter roll, especially if it's coming from the state election official, even campaigns, because campaigns purchase the voter roll to do voter outreach. So, this has a lot of effects beyond just even the clean election aspect. It's wasted taxpayer dollars of the Secretary of State sending ballot applications. It wastes campaign money. And then, as you're saying, if you do get one of these, you start to wonder, like, how many else are going out there, and the trust in the process kind of starts to decline. And we've seen in polls and stuff, when people do not trust the process, they don't want to participate in it. And that's something we don't want in America. We want people to trust the process. We want everyone to believe their vote matters and that our elections are decided in a fair way. And we didn't have that in 2020. And we really need to have that in 2024. So it's so disheartening that Secretary Benson won't just come out and fix this before Election Day this year.
A lot of people I talk to here in Michigan, they always say, like, it's got to be easier to do with all of the computers and all the records we have. Is it really that if Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson wanted to clean it up, is it really difficult to do? Does every state have the technical problems doing it, or is that not the issue?
No, some states are really good at it. Look at Florida, for instance. They use almost every tool available to them. They check their jury records. So, like, if someone says, I can't be on your jury because I don't live there, or something like that, or I'm not a citizen, so I can't sit on the jury, they then take that information, share it with the election office, and it's removed. They use the Social Security Death Index. So when people die, obviously Social Security gets notified, so their checks stop going out. They actually use all these tools available to them because they care about election integrity. I think here what we have in Michigan is it is just not a priority for Jocelyn Benson. And so she's not using all the tools available to her or acting on credible information to do investigation from data she receives to look into see if these people have died. I mean, I know we have given her obituaries and tombstones of some of these individuals, some who died more than 20 years ago. No excuse for them to still be on the voter roll. But again, she takes no action. She's not interested in this. And it's really, really unfortunate to have someone who's so partisan in control of the elections in Michigan.
And this issue is not a Democrat Republican issue because it's more about just getting it right. It's not about favoring Democrats, favoring Republicans. It should be about fair for everyone, right? That's what you're saying.
Right, exactly. And, polls show overwhelmingly that the majority of Americans support basic election integrity measures like voter ID. And, we just continue to see this narrative pushed on the other side that it's Jim Crow 2.0 and all of this. But look what happened in Georgia. They passed their law and they just had record early voting turnout the other day. This is not quote unquote voter suppression. This is about restoring trust in the process. And so if we could all just come together on that, where the American public is, I think everyone would be a lot happier and have more trust in the system.
Last question, because I lived in Pennsylvania for a while. In Pennsylvania, I believe Democrat governor, correct? I think.
Correct.
So you dealt with Pennsylvania, but you had a different outcome than Michigan?
Right. We notified them in 2020 about more than 20,000 deceased registrants that we had identified on their voter roll. And they settled our lawsuit and they agreed to remove them and implement the procedures that we were asking by checking their voter roll against the Social Security Death Index. So they actually saw the problem and said, let's act, we got to follow the law and clean this up. And they did, which is the exact opposite response from what we've seen in Michigan with Jocelyn Benson.
So it sounds like that Social Security Death Index is something like when you die. I mean, that's the main, like, everyone here says, well, there's got to be a computer that ties everything together. That sounds like that's one of the resources that right there, that because the feds, they're going to know the Social Security, they're going to know that.
Right. No, exactly. And it's an easy available resource. Like, states should be using it. It makes sense. I don't know why some states aren't taking the effort, or when they're receiving information about dead voters, acting on it.
Yeah. So, okay, you have the later this month with Michigan there. What's the next step again in the process with our Secretary of State?
So on the end of this month, we submit, both sides, us and Michigan, to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. We submit our final legal briefs for them. So the judges will read those over and then issue a decision.
Could that decision possibly be to force Michigan to do that, to do
They
clean
could
them.
go that far. We've even asked for less.
Oh.
Basically, the lower court judge just said, "Oh, they're following the law because they have a program to remove people. It doesn't matter that it's not effective." So we asked the court to say that it requires a state not to just have a program to remove the dead people, but to actually be effective and be removing people. So we're just hoping that the Sixth Circuit will say that and then send it back down to the lower judge, who will then evaluate their program for being effective or not. I know it's really legal jargon, but we're hopeful. And, this is it's been a needed part of the National Voter Registration Act. It's been the law, but no one's defined it anywhere. So this is going to be a precedent setting case.
And it's really important. I want to put it out there. This does not mean there's 500,000 people voting or 20,000 dead people voting. It's just about making people confident that it is secure and that everything is on the up and up.
Right. And I just want to point out to your listeners, get out there and vote. Don't let these headlines discourage you about the voter rolls and stuff. This is why it makes it so important that you guys go out there and cast your ballot. Go vote early, get your vote in. We always say it's way more secure to go do it in person, just in case you have any issues. But everyone get out there and go cast your ballot.
Thank you very much. You're going to be busy for the next. You're always busy, though. I appreciate your time.